Everyone, this is FideMaster Viktor Neustroyev, and you are welcome to my webinar where I'm going to explain how to attack the Uncastled King. While we are waiting for more attendees to come, just guys, please let me know if the sound and video quality is good. I'm also streaming this webinar on YouTube and Twitch. So while we are waiting for more attendees to come, let's just talk a bit. Okay, so those who attend the webinar for the first time, please introduce yourself. Just tell me which country are you from and what's your current rating. It can be either a FIDE rating or chess.com rating or even Lichess rating. So the sound is good, perfect. Okay, so just a few people attended. Okay, but I'm sure that at least most of them got the emails with a reminder that the webinar starts now. So I think they are going to enter the webinar a bit later, but come on, let's start. And my first question to you, what do you think? How should you attack the king that is uncastled? And what are the preconditions to start the attack? So first, how exactly to attack? What's your opinion? And second, what are the preconditions? Yeah, hi everyone, especially hi to newcomers. Just any ideas that you have. So what should happen to the... So King Marshall suggests a good idea that we should attack only if there are enough unbalances. In other words, I would say if the enemy king is compromised. And yes, John is also correct about that we should attack when we have a kind of a majority on a certain side of the board where the enemy king is located. But this is what is true mainly for the king side or the queen side attack. However, if the king is in the center, and usually the uncastled king is located in the center, you are not likely to have the advantage or a material advantage on a certain side of the board, so in the center. Maybe in case if the enemy pieces are stuck on one side of the board, then yes, it makes sense. However, if not, if the enemy pieces are located on both flanks, then unfortunately no, you can't. Extra material in the center doesn't help you to succeed with this attack. But the main idea is that the king should be compromised. What does it mean? It means that you may realize that it's possible to attack a strong attack on the king and they would have to defend. And as we were talking in our previous webinars, the goal of the attack is not to checkmate. The goal of the attack is to get some advantage. And then convert this initiative when you attack the king is to convert this attack or this initiative to something material. If possible, you can checkmate, but very often, almost every time, there is no checkmate, but you just grab the material. However, your opponent is able to defend and escape from a checkmate, and then you just win the game because of extra material. This is what I'm also going to demonstrate in our today's games. So John also said a very important thing, that we can attack if we have open files in the center. Right, you're absolutely right. However, another question for you: how to open these files? There is also a good comment that we may attack by intuition. Well, so I think there should be some preconditions. So the king should be weakened, and so the position should have some tactical motives inside that you can take the advantage of. And for example, if you see that you can open the file to attack the king, that's good. How to open the file? Yeah, exactly. So you should expose the king's position. This is the main idea, to be able to attack the king in the center when it can't castle, because if it can castle, even if you open the center, it just moves to the king's side, castles successfully, and then you can't do anything. So if the king is in the center and is uncastled, you should open the files. To be able to do this, you'd better exchange the pawns. Exchange the pawns in the center, and this is how you open the files. You can even sacrifice the pawn to open a file. But sometimes you don't have such an option, and this is where you should consider a piece sacrifice. Okay, too many talks. Let's now switch to the game, where I'm going to explain how to attack by practice. This is the game between two almost unknown players, Missen and Müller. This is just a quite old game, classics. So I don't know these guys, but it was English opening: knight c3, knight f6, knight f3, knight c6, d4. It takes d4, knight d4, and bishop b4. This is a typical move. This is where white decided to take. Why not? However, then they made a mistake. Instead of developing their pieces quickly, maybe queen c2 to secure here bishop d2 or queen b3, they just played d3. And black continued with queen e7. Black is preparing to attack on e2. If, for example, in this position white plays e3, they would be able to successfully defend against the attack. Maybe they are not, they don't have a good position because they lag in development, that's true, but at least this is how they could continue the game, and maybe the game would end in their favor. However, it's more likely that black wins or makes a draw. Okay, fine. So queen e7. In the game it was played bishop g2, after which you can continue with bishop a6 attacking this pawn. How to play then? One of the best moves here was this, but if this move is played, you can continue with d5. Now c takes d5 is impossible, you just capture on e2, so they should castle, and this is how you gain a pawn for free. They will continue with b3, and you have either to take or to play c5. Queen retreats d4, something like that. The position is unclear, because d4 they, for example, capture there, you capture there, bishop c6 check, king to f8, queen moves, rook b8, rook b1. So this is where you have extra pawn, but the position is unclear, you have to castle. let's go back. In the game it was played queen d3, which is not a good move, but it does the same thing. It protects these two. How would you continue here? Yeah, d5, that's right. So d5, of course. No, not mainly to open the diagonal, not the d file, of course. b3. And now there is a perfect move that was played by black in this position. Can you please find it? After d5 is played and then b3, there is something wrong with b3 move that black can take the advantage already. So what can black play? What's your opinion? d4. Yes, guys, you are absolutely right. d4. And if now, let's say bishop c6, just move the king away. And if now they decide to capture, you can simply capture on c3 and then this rook, so you will be a piece up. So that's why bishop c6 doesn't work. They first have to solve the problem, and the problem can be solved with queen d4. But after queen d4, you can just play rook d8, bishop c6, just an intermediate check, but king goes to f8, and now you see one player is developed, the other player is not. But together with the king weakness, here white has some other problems with the spin, and this is how they just lost the game. So they can't move the queen to be able to protect on c3, and they lose the piece. The move that they played in this position was bishop d5. How would you play then? c6. So c6 is a clever move, of course, but not the best one. What else? Rook e8. Rook e8, they can just castle. Yeah, King Marcher is absolutely correct. Here the best move is rook takes d5. Or knight d5, actually. Rook d5 is better. Rook d5, what can be done? Queen cannot capture, the knight is pinned. If the pawn captures, it's a checkmate in one. So this move, bishop d5, was just a bishop loss. The queen has to move anyway. And after the queen moves, you can capture on c3 and do a lot. Let's say queen goes there, capture there, king f1, rook d1, king g2, bishop b7, f3, queen e2. The game is over soon. Okay, so what you may learn from this position. One of the important factors to take into account when you would like to attack the uncastled king is development. the side who is developed better usually gets more chances to succeed. And of course, don't forget about opening the files. For example, like in this position, we tried to open the d file to get rid of the queen, protecting the knight. However, you see, in this position, we can't say that the king was really weak, but we can definitely say that together with the king being in the center, there were some other tactical motives in the position after b3 move. This tactical motive was the pin that you can take the advantage of. The next game is the game between Chigorin and Byrne, and this time Chigorin lost. You know that opening theory was quite poor in the beginning of 20th century, so they like to play King's Gambit. However, nowadays King's Gambit is considered to be not as good, so that's why there are just a few strong people who play it. However, King's Gambit is quite popular among club players because it's quite risky, and usually club players don't remember the exact lines of how to defend. So bishop c5 is a trap, actually. If f takes e5, it's just queen h4 and queen takes e4. Knight f3, d6, bishop c4, knight f6, c3, with the idea of playing d4. So you see, instead of castling, and they can't actually castle, they try to play c3, d4 to be able to castle them. So one of the best options here was knight e4. I just don't understand why this move wasn't played. For example, f takes e5, knight f2 is good. Okay, black instead castled d3, knight c6. These are not the best moves. For example, here d5 was better, but these guys were not aware of the modern theory. That's why they were making the opening theory during the game. Queen e2. No, queen e2 is not actually required, but I understand it's because of they wanted to play bishop e3. Rook e8. So with this move, black demonstrate that they are about to open the position and open the center with d5, maybe d5 right away. That's why white decided to close it with f5. Now white has a clear plan to attack on the king side with g5, with g4, g5, and so on. This is what actually I played when I was much younger. I played Vienna game with white pieces, and I was quite successful in it. It's not King's Gambit, it's better than King's Gambit, but it's also a sharp opening where you have to use the f pawn, and if you are able to play f5, it means that you have a clear plan of what to do. What happens then? What do you think? Again, black is developed better, white king is in the center. How to play? Okay, so I'm glad that we have some spectators even on YouTube. Bishop f5 and then d5 and e4 should win a piece back. Okay, let's say bishop f5, bishop f7 instead. King f7, e takes f5, and then if you play d5, there is no check. There is knight e6, which is quite annoying actually. So bishop f5 doesn't work immediately, but d5 works. And what do you think is the best move for white in this position? Chigorin was able to make it on the board actually. How would you play? So the best is to retreat, because taking means to open the position. They'd better keep the pawn chain a kind of a pawn chain, because if the e file gets open, this is rook versus queen and king. So at least one of these pieces has to stay on the e file and become the object of the attack. That's why bishop b3. However, let me just demonstrate what happens in this move. It's e4, and you intend to capture the knight and to gain the queen. So something like that doesn't work. Just d takes f3 and you gain the queen. If d takes e4, it's just either knight e4 or rook e4. I think rook e4 is better. D takes c6, you capture there. Then what? Bishop takes probably. B takes c6 and queen versus knight and rook. Keeping in mind the fact that they can't castle anymore and they lose the pawn on f5, I can say that black is absolutely winning here. So let's go back. After d5 it was bishop b3, and what do you think how to continue? I think King Marcher had a good idea that didn't work in the previous position but may work here. Who can recognize this idea? Yeah, this time bishop f5 works. If they take, it's e4 with the idea to open the file and take the advantage of the rook being in front, being pinning these two pieces, or at least you can capture the knight. So if king d1, you gain a minor piece back. However, after knight e5, your position is winning. You are about to play with one of your knights to g4 and attack these two squares. That's why they didn't take on f5. They played bishop g5 to restrict the knight, so e4 is hanging, but the knight is pinned. So d takes e4, d takes e4, and bishop e4. What if queen takes e4? How would you play? Knight takes. Yeah, knight takes. Because you're already 2 pawns up in this position. If it just simplifies like that. King e2, for example. But anyway, already 2 pawns up. So queen e4 doesn't work, and bishop f6 is also a mistake. You take on f3. And you are still 2 pawns up in this case. In this case, it's similar. Bishop c7, bishop d3. You are only 1 pawn up, but you see the bishop on c7 is trapped. So that's why after bishop e4, they just played queen c4 and taken on f7. Oh, there were several moves that black could play, but they decided to exchange the queens with queen d5. This is how they could unpin. If queen takes d5, knight takes d5, and again black has 2 extra pawns. But then Chigorin blundered, he just played queen b5, and I'm not going to ask, what happened then, because everyone understands it's just a discovered attack after which the queen is lost. So in this position, there was a tactical motive, a pin on the e file, and to be able to take the advantage of, we had to open the file. The main idea was to sacrifice the bishop. However, we understand that it's not a sacrifice actually, because black is able to gain a minor piece back just in a few moves. The king had to stay in the center due to this bishop. So this is actually a big problem for king's gambit. The king stays on e1 because when the bishop is on c5, it can't castle anymore. Okay, the next game I prepared for you is this one. Let's just flip the board. It's black to move in this position, and those of you who are subscribed to my Instagram account probably know the answer. What black should do in this position. This is the link to my Instagram. There is also a good question. Is it good to castle queenside in King's Gambit? No, because in King's Gambit, white develops the queenside very slowly, and that's why if they decide to castle to the queenside, they are likely to delay this castling, and this is what black can take the advantage of. So they have to castle to the king side faster. Usually it's like that. Okay, so one of the suggestions is knight d4. What other ideas do you have, guys? Unfortunately, knight d4 is wrong. Why? For example, knight d4, c takes d4, and what then? Okay, rook d4 is another suggestion. Okay, so who supports rook takes d4? Can you please suggest the line? Rook e8 is another move, but as for rook e8, I don't think it works. They can just simply move the king to d1, for example, or to f1, let's say to d1. No, this move doesn't work because of the other reason. Or maybe I'm mistaken. Yes, I am mistaken. It's because of king f2, then this rook to e1. So rook e8 doesn't work. The best move is rook takes d4. Bishop c5 to add extra attack, but actually this bishop is required to stay on b4. How did we... Yeah, thanks King Marsher. So, how did we realize that something like that should work? First of all, we noticed that the king is in the center, it's uncastled. And the second is these two pieces located on the same diagonal. That's why the bishop coming to b4 would create a deadly pin. That's why we have to get rid of the pawn on c3 with one of these two moves. However, if we do it with the knight, then nobody will protect this bishop on b4. So we have to do it with the rook and also take the advantage of this pin. What then? If pawn takes, it's easy. If queen takes, I don't think it deserves attention. But what if knight takes? This is the main move. Then you have to play knight d4. And the main idea of this position is that if queen takes d4, it's a checkmate in 1 on e2. So they have to capture with the pawn, and we see that to be able to checkmate, we should just get rid of the queen on d2. And bishop b4 is the best option for that. After the exchange, we have queen versus rook and bishop. For example, king f2, this is what was played in the game. f5 to make both bishops under attack. Bishop d2, f takes g4, and this is a completely winning position. However, they continued playing this game, but of course we understand that this is where grandmasters should stop, because there are no chances to fight against a strong player. The other game this is another good example. The game between Ravinsky and Panov. Panov is the guy who invented Panov's attack in Karakan, but in this game he lost. So white to move, the enemy king is in the center, white leads in development. However, black has one extra pawn, and if black is able to solve all their problems successfully, they can just keep their advantage if only they finish their development, maybe play bishop c5 or bishop e7 and then castle. So what do you think? Which move white should start with? Knight e6, and what then after f takes c6? f4? You can't play f4, the pawn is pinned. There is a queen on a7, and if you play bishop e3, I'll just play bishop c5, for example. Okay, after knight e6, f takes e6, what are your suggestions of how to continue? Okay, so here the move order matters. If you take on e6 and then you play rook d7, black can just continue with queen d7 and let you take the knight on e5, because they already have some advantage. You sacrifice too much, the knight and the rook for a knight, so you sacrifice a rook for a pawn, but then you gain only the knight, so they already have extra exchange. Let me demonstrate it. Here they can take with the queen and secure their position. Then, for example, bishop d6 and castle on the next move. There is no advantage for white. But if first you capture on d7, queen d7 doesn't look good. Just queen takes e5 and you keep your knight on f4 alive, and this is where you have two minor pieces for a rook and a pawn, which is in your favor. So that's why after rook d7 they had to take with the knight, and this is now where you can play this move. So taking here is important, otherwise you can apply several discovered attacks. For example, you are threatening with knight g7 and queen e8, which is quite dangerous. Then the king escapes to c7, you play bishop f4. So that's really too risky, so they have to take here. Queen e6. And what if now king d8? How to checkmate such a king? Which move to start with first? Bishop g5, yeah, that's right. Bishop g5, king c7, queen c6, king goes to b8, and bishop f4. Oh, queen c7 is a blunder, it's just a checkmate in one. If this move, it's bishop c7, queen c7, and queen e8. So both players understood that moving the king to d8 doesn't make sense, and they played bishop e7. How would you continue the attack in this position? So what's your next move? Yeah, exactly. So we are going to cover all the possible defenses black has here. Rook e1 sounds good, but yeah, actually this is the move that was played in the game. Rook e1. What if bishop g5? What's your opinion? What black gonna do in this case? Another move you suggested is bishop c6, but I don't think it makes sense. Just rook c6 and then they just castle. So bishop g5, how to react? Bishop g5 is not the best, but this is what we definitely should cover. Knight f6 means to blunder on c8, so it doesn't work. Anything else that can support the bishop on e7? Maybe knight b6? Knight b6 is actually a blunder as well. Then you can just reinforce your attack with rook e1 move. So how to play? If let's say this move, rook c7, it's just bishop c6. And they're in trouble. For example, king goes to f8 and maybe rook e4 with so on. Rook f4 and that's enough. Okay, so no, bishop g5 is bad because of queen c5. This is how they make a kind of two attacks. They support the bishop and they attack our bishop. The best move is rook e1. Knight b6 now means bishop g5 and the same position. Like that approximately. That's why queen c5. Queen c5 is the best now. This is the critical point of the game where white played the perfect move, the only move that guaranteed the advantage to them. What do you think? What was that move? Bishop h3, actually bishop h3 looks good, but bishop h3 just rook d8, and looks like they solve their problems. No, knight b6 doesn't make much sense. Yeah. So the best move here is b4. Yeah, before, not rook e4. The idea of such a move is just to let your bishop to come to g5, because when the queen was there, they could just simply capture. Because if then you decide to play rook e4 in this position, they can, let's say, play queen c5 back. So The key idea is to bring the bishop to the attack. And the best reaction was to capture on e1 and sacrifice the queen. However, then I'm sure white is still winning. Rook c2 and maybe just h4 to support. The king can't castle, and with two bishops and the queen, I think it's a absolutely winning position. Both pawns are likely to get to be lost. So I just don't see what to do to protect one of them, and the other one dies immediately after bishop c6, bishop b5. For example, in case of a5, it works, and so I don't think. Let's say a5, you can play this check. He goes to, if he goes there, it's a checkmate into moves with bishop f6 and then queen d7. If he goes there, it's bishop f6. No, not bishop f6, but bishop b5 is enough just. Okay, so that was the best chance for black, but even there they would lose the game. However, they play knight f8. Knight f8 is a mistake. What do you think? How to react? But if we capture the enemy queen, they take our queen. Do you think it's the best? No, you should save the queen. The key idea is where to move your queen out. Because if you just do this, they take, you take there. They, let's say, move the, no, they take here, for example. You can't play bishop here. You can only play bishop a3, but rook c7 is strong enough to solve the problem. So there is no advantage for white in this position. You have to move the queen, but which exact square to move the queen to? One of the suggestions is a6. What are other suggestions? What do you think? Okay, so the best move is queen g4. No, white is not up a piece because white is already a rook down because the rook was sacrificed. First, there was a knight sacrifice on e6, and second, there was an exchange sacrifice on d7. I mean, it's vice versa. First, the exchange sacrifice, then the knight sacrifice. Queen e4 doesn't make sense, just queen d6. Queen e6 is good. This move is good. The main idea is to keep the queen attacking the rook on c8. Queen g4 in this case is better because with this move we're also threatening to trap the rook on h8. How to play? Queen c3 is the only move because what else? Queen c7. Queen c7, just queen g7 is enough, let's say. Knight g6. And this is where you can continue just, what, bishop g5, let's say. Yeah, bishop g5 is enough. For example, if rook f8, you capture, yes, right, knight captures, then you play bishop c6. So the knight is pinned. If queen takes, it's queen e7. If king goes there, it's queen f8 mate. The only move is queen to c3. However, this move can be played for both queen a6 and queen g4. Queen c3, now the rook is hanging. How to play then? When the enemy king is exposed and like in our case, doesn't have any defenders, what is our best strategy? This bishop is the only defender. The knight maybe, but I think the knight only blocks the king and doesn't allow the king to escape to the f8 and g8 squares. Well, you have a lot of attacking resources. Bishop d2 or rook a3. Bishop d2 looks good actually. Queen c2 and then you can play queen g7. That makes sense. But there is a better move, and white was able to calculate it properly. It's rook takes e7. What then? Oh, such move like king d8 doesn't deserve analysis, because after bishop g5 it should be a checkmate soon. Even if there is no checkmate, but there is. Even if there is no checkmate, then we are not down the material. We have bishop versus rook, bishop and pawn versus rook, so it's enough to compensate, especially in such a position when the king is exposed. But there is a checkmate after bishop g5. So king takes e7 is the only move that deserves attention. Bishop g5 anyway. Now they have 3 moves to move to. This is where you have to improve your calculation skills if you can't calculate them. By the way, I use this example in my calculation workshop. I'll send you the link. So yeah, here it is. You can look at this course. It's my chess calculation workshop, where I teach how to calculate, what are typical mistakes, and then I just practice with you to explain the process. So king f7 is easy, just bishop d5 wins. That's right, bishop d5 wins. King e8, you can continue with queen e4 and queen e7. That would be a checkmate. If king goes to g6, you can play bishop somewhere on this diagonal, and then the king has to move. Queen g5 is a mate. So king f7 is easy. What else? King e8. What can you say about this move? How to continue the attack? Queen e4 then. Yeah, maybe queen e4 or maybe queen e2. I just don't want to block this bishop. What then? Then your queen comes to e7. For example, if he goes there, it's queen e7 mate in 1. If he goes there, then bishop d5. King only goes to g6, queen e4, so you let him capture. Because if he goes there, you have bishop f7, and after g6, queen h4 mate. That's why he has to take. But then queen f4, king g6, well, king g6, bishop f7 is a mate. If king h5, still bishop f7, something blocks on g6, and queen h4 is a mate. So the main move is king d6, and this is where your good visualization is required. Of course, queen d1 is the next move, because you should move your queen to attack the king, and at the same time you shouldn't block the bishops. So it's not queen f4, because this bishop cannot join the attack anymore. King goes to c1, which is the only square. no, they can also play to e6, but if they move to e6, queen d5 is a checkmate in one. So king c7, bishop f4, king goes to b6, queen d6. If rook blocks, it's queen b8 mate. Blocking with the queen doesn't make much sense because it's just a queen sacrifice, after which black can still get a checkmate on b8. So moving the king to a7 is the only move. Then queen e7, trying to reach b7. That's why they have to block with the rook. Now one of the best moves was bishop e3, because after, no, if queen captures, queen c7 is a mate, so they would have to play this move, but then queen d8, and the only thing they can do is just to block and let you play queen b6. Bishop c7, queen a1, bishop f1. This is what was played in the game, but bishop e3 was winning. No, even after bishop c7, it's a completely winning position. And then, no, queen c7 is the best, but queen b6 was played in the game, and anyway, they resigned. It's just a simple checkmate on a7. So here, when you sacrifice the material, good calculation ability is required. Please keep it in mind. For example, if you can't visualize that after rook a7 you deliver a checkmate, then you shouldn't apply this sacrifice. Because this sacrifice may work only in case if your position is already better. And sometimes you can't just evaluate it by looking at the position and comparing your advantages and disadvantages. You have to calculate a certain line and realize that by the end of the combination you are able to deliver a checkmate to the king. Okay, let's go back. So again, here the key factor was a better development for white, which allowed them to succeed with a few sacrifices which exposed the king. And then, because this piece and maybe the knight on f8 didn't participate in the game, white was able to succeed. Okay, the next is the game played by Steinitz against von Bardeleben. I think it was Greca attack. Bishop b4 check, knight c3, d5. d5 is not the best move here, knight e4, and then bishop c3 is the best strategy that at least equalizes the position for black. But that time they were not familiar about how to play this exact opening, so d5 was played. E takes d5, knight takes d5. White castled. Knight c3 didn't work. If knight c3, it's rook e1. And for example, in case of this move, it's a strong attack after this, bishop a3. For example, if king goes there, it's just queen b3 with two threats to take the bishop and on f7. If, let's say, something like that, then at least you can capture, play either queen b3 or knight e5. That will be a strong attack. So, and of course, bishop c3, b takes c3 doesn't make much sense. Queen e1, this is how you just gain the knight for free. Of course, everybody sees it. Bishop e6 was played. And this is where white decided to provoke black. They played bishop g5, attacking the queen. So, not the best move, but a good idea at least. Rook e1 was a better option, but let's say bishop g5. Something like that weakens the bishop, and then rook e1 can be played with some pressure on e6, and the position would be in white favor. Another good move here was this. For example, knight d5, bishop takes d5, then if, let's say, queen b3, it's still okay. Two bishops, white is slightly better. But bishop e7 was played. This is a kind of inaccuracy that already allows white to take some advantage. And this is what you can actually meet in your games. So at the moment, no sacrifices are required. So here you have a better development. The king is still in the center and is uncastled. So what do you think you should do? Bishop takes e7, but what's the idea? After bishop e7, let's say knight c takes on e7. With knight c7, they try to support on d5. Okay, what else do you suggest after bishop takes e7? So guys, I'm reading all your comments on on Twitch and on YouTube as well. Queen b3? What's the point of queen b3? Queen b3, they can probably what? Take on g5. Then you intend to take on b7, but then I think knight to a5 looks good. Let's check queen b3 actually, not so sure about this move. Yeah, bishop g5 is unlikely to be a good move, but knight c3 may work, because if you play bishop e6, it's knight e2 and intermediate check. So that's why b takes c3, bishop c4, queen c4, castle kingside, and wait, why I said castle? No, bishop g5 and black is better. d5 then. Yeah, d5 should be okay because of this move. There is some pressure with rook f e1. Okay, no. One of the best moves is either bishop d5 or knight d5. Bishop d5 was played in the game. What if bishop g5 now? If so, you can capture on e6, f takes e6, and just d5 opening the position. For example, e takes d5, knight takes d5, and you're threatening with rook e1. Or you're threatening with knight g5 and then rook e1. No, knight g5 and knight c7. This is what I had in mind. So bishop d5, bishop takes d5, knight takes d5. And now what? Queen takes d5. But after bishop e7, if they still want to castle, they have to capture with the knight. This is a logical move. However, after rook e1, the king has to stay in the center to secure the knight on e7. What if they castle at which moment? They couldn't castle. They had no chance because all the moves were forcing moves. We captured the minor piece, we captured the minor piece again, so no, they couldn't. Rook e1. Right now they can't castle because e7 is hanging in this case. How to play in this position? At the end of the previous line. Here? Here castling. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, but knight g5, queen g5, knight c7 and knight e6. because if you play something like that, it's just queen b3, and still knight e6 is an option. So let's continue with the game. It was rook e1. They played f6. What else they could do? For example, queen d7. If queen d7, your task is just to put the pressure and play this move. Because to avoid this pin, they have to play with the king, what means that the king stays in the center. And you can take the advantage of it already. Because the rooks are not connected and they can't join the game. Well, so that's why f6 to locate the king on f7. Queen e2, pressuring, queen d7, rook a c1. This is not actually the best move. They'd better play rook a d1. For example, if king f7, it's queen c4 can be played in this position, knight d5, and this is where you can simply continue with knight e5, f takes e5, d takes e5, and you'll be threatening with to capture on d5 and play e6. So they had to sacrifice the knight, and you'll be one pawn up, but the king is exposed, so it's extra pawn plus something else, plus the attack. So that was the best option, but they played rook ac1, which is a mistake. And here the best move was to play king f7 and this move, because now queen here it doesn't work because of d5, and this no longer works because after that it's only e6, so just queen e6 and the problem is solved. Black is fine. That's why the rook is not there. It should be on d1. Okay, so I don't know why, but black didn't play king f7. They also made a mistake. They played c6. How to play in this position? What do you think? So d5. Yes, guys, exactly. Your task is to open the position. d5. You are threatening with d takes c6, of course. So they took. That's not the best move. Because now you can add another attacker. By sacrificing the pawn, you not only open the files, but you secured the d4 square for the knight. So knight f5 is a huge threat. After that, the game would be winning. That's why they have to play king f7. How would you continue then? Knight b5? Well, knight b5 makes sense, but this is not the best option. If you play knight b5, they can just simply play rook hc8. and then you are stuck on the queen side. But there is a better move. With the same idea, there is a better move. It's knight e6. Because if rook h... No, you are threatening with rook c7, it's obvious. But if this move, then you can play queen g4. And because of the knight being there, you attack on g7. What then? g6, what else? Because you are also threatening with something like knight g5. Let's say they play this move. Actually it's similar. So g6, still knight g5. The idea is to capture the queen, so they have to play this move. Now the queen looks secured and everything is fine. At least this is how black thought at that position. What do you think? How white should play in this position to punish black for such a play and for king being in the center? Don't forget the knight is hanging here. Yes, guys, it's rook takes e7. I'm sure you noticed this X-ray attack. So if queen takes e7, it's just rook c8 and you have extra knight. Then you can exchange the queens and just win the game because of an extra piece. So right, yeah, knight h7 doesn't look good, because knight h7, the idea is to gain the queen back, but there is just a small advantage of one pawn. So actually knight h7 is another move that deserves attention, but it's not as good as rook takes e7. So they have to capture with the king. But now you join the rook. What then? If they want to protect the queen, they have to either move to d6 or d8. For example, if king goes to d8, knight e6. King goes there, and just to discover the attack, so you capture the enemy queen for free. That's why king d6 is better. How do you think you should continue in this position? You should realize the geometry of the board here to find a good move. Knight e4. Knight e4 just to expose the king, but if the king goes to c7, if the king goes to c7, you wanted to play rook c1, but rook c1, king d8. Okay, no, knight e4 doesn't look good. Yes, the best move is queen b4. Queen b4 in this position, and then what? We realize the king has only two squares to move to. If it goes to c6, the game is over after rook c1. And if it goes to c7, then you should continue with knight e6. The only square is b8. But after that, it's queen e4, and the king is trapped with his own pieces. So rook c7, knight c7, queen c7, rook e8, the game is over. So taking on e7 with the king and with the queen means to lose the game. That's why king f8 was played. But how to continue now? Because if we capture on d7, we risk to get a checkmate with rook c1. What's your opinion? So who knows what now? No, 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 wait. Guys, queen d7 doesn't work. Rook takes c1 is a checkmate. You have to do something else to... No, of course you shouldn't blunder a checkmate in this position. Rook f7. Yes, rook f7 is the best, not knight h7. Knight h7 is good, but then king e7 and... Yeah, you have to play rook a1 and so on, but rook f7. If queen f7, it's rook c8 first. So king goes to g8, because if the king goes to e8, it's just queen d7 with a mate. However, rook g7 with the same idea. If king takes, this is a check. If queen takes, we take on c8 and exchange the queen, so and end up with extra knight on g5. So king goes to h8, rook h7, let's continue. Same thing about the queen. If queen h7, it's rook c8. King goes to g8, rook g7 again, king h8, but now we can already play queen h4. King has to take, queen h7, king f8, and what then? Then it's actually easy. You can continue with queen h8, forcing him to go to e7, queen g7, and now they have 3 spots for the king. Let's say king goes there, queen g8, king e7, queen f7, and if the king goes there, it's queen f6, what leads to a checkmate. If king goes there, it's queen f8, queen f8 first, and after this move just knight f7, king d7, and queen d6. So all moves are with checks, because we see the rook is hanging here with a checkmate. So after queen g7, they could play king d6, but then queen f6, and that's the same thing. Or king d8, what happened in the game, but then you already know how to play. So in this position, in this game, I mean, with this move, white provoked black to make a mistake, and then they fully took the advantage of the king being in the center. So it was not about the how to attack the uncastled king, but also how to take the advantage of a better development, and how to take the advantage of the king being in the center. What means that the rook can't participate in the game. For example, if the rook were already developed, I would say black is fine. They can just simply move the king to f8 or d8, and that's it. But here, due to the king breaking the connection between two rooks, black had to solve the problem with the king, and unfortunately for them, due to such a move like d5, which allowed white to activate the knight and get it to e6, they got a serious problem. However, you see, to become a strong player, you should improve your calculation ability. For example, here, I don't believe that many chess players would find a rook takes e7, especially among club players. Okay, so these are the games I wanted to share today. I'm sure you enjoyed how to attack. Just try to remember the basic things. So you should lead in development if you want to attack the Uncastled king. You the position should also contain some tactical motives that you can apply. And to be able to attack, you please open the files. It's okay to exchange the pawns if you can. It's the best thing that I suggest. You can sacrifice the pawn to open the file, but if you decide to sacrifice a piece, which is also a quite common solution as you can see from these games examples, you have to calculate. Don't forget about it. Okay, and now a minute of a self-promotion. So this is my Instagram account. It's I publish every week, so you can follow me, you can follow my stories. I'm going to share the link. This is the link. So my profile, please send me a friend request. In such a case, you will you'll get all the notifications about the webinars. And this is my website. And actually, as for the website, I wanted to show you something here. You're speaking about training program, so you see it's coaching. The course consists of online courses, of course, and I highly recommend you these two, the newest one, Chess Calculation Workshop and Play Chess Like Nepo. As for coaching, so I create training programs for my students, for example, training program for 3 months, and here you can find an example of such a training program that my student from Moscow, my student Natalie, completed, and she increased her rating by 300 points. So here, this is the plan for 13 weeks. She did it all, and this is how she improved her ability to play chess. So if you want to get such a training plan, just click here and order it on my website. Yeah, here. Okay, there is also a training plan for 6 months if you want. It costs a bit more. Also, this is my blog, and I think there was an article about Natalie who won a championship in Moscow. No, it's not here, it's on Instagram. Let me show you. Yeah, this is she. So I mean, this is her. So she won such a perfect cup. There was a tournament among lawyers in Moscow, and she was the winner. Okay, and of course, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. So this is the link. Okay, if you have any questions, I can answer. So, do you do personal training for kids? Yes, I do personal training. It's an online class by Skype or by Zoom. However, it depends how old kids are. For example, I start with, no, my youngest one was 4 years old. A student from Mexico, a very gifted person, and I'm sure he can become a Mexican champion, especially if the pandemic is over. So about private classes, you can contact me by email, tricksofchess@gmail.com. As for kids, usually I work with 7-8 years old kids, but my youngest one was 4, now he is 5.5. I have some students who are 6, and actually I have half of my students are kids and half of them are adults. Okay, thank you for your attention. That was FIDE Master Viktor Neustroyev, and of course you are welcome to my next webinar that will be next Sunday. And if you like the webinar, please invite your friends. Please share this webinar on with your friends on chess.com or any other social nets. I conduct webinars every Sunday, so please join every Sunday same time. Just follow my announcements and you'll be aware of when the webinar starts. Okay, thank you and hope to see you next Sunday.